Derek Walsh stood in the corner of the alien salvage yard, staring at the saddest creature he had ever seen. The dragon was massive, easily the size of a cargo hauler, but it looked small somehow. His chains were thick and heavy. Its scales were dull gray instead of the bright red that the breeding catalogs showed. The creature's breathing came in short, painful gasps. 3 credits, the Vrelian dealer said. His voice had that clicking sound that Derek had learned meant the alien was laughing. That is all I ask. 3 credits for a completely useless dragon. Derek looked at his account balance on his worn data pad. 3 credits and 17 cents. That was everything he had left in the universe. 6 months ago he had arrived on Outpost Talus with hope and a plan. He was going to start a ship repair business. He was going to make something of himself on the frontier. But the mining operation shut down 3 weeks after he arrived. Half the station emptied out. The other half stopped spending money on anything except food and rent. His business failed before it really started. The dragon cannot fly, the Vrelian continued. It cannot breathe fire. It failed every single combat trial. Tomorrow morning we process it for biomass. But if you want it tonight, you can have it. 3 credits. Derek knew what biomass processing meant. They would kill the dragon and break it down for parts. Dragon scales could be used in armor. Dragon bones had minerals that certain aliens needed. Even dragon blood had uses in medical treatments. A dead dragon was worth maybe 50 credits in parts. A live dragon that could not fight was worth nothing at all. Why are you even selling it? Derek asked. Why not just process it yourself and keep the money? The Vrelian's mandibles clicked faster. Processing costs 4 credits in equipment and labor. This way I lose nothing. You pay for processing. Everyone wins. Except the dragon, Derek thought. He looked at the creature again. Its eyes were half closed, but not from sleep. From exhaustion. From giving up. Derek had seen that look before back on Earth. He had grown up working at an animal restoration preserve. Rich people would buy exotic animals as pets, get bored with them and then dump them at the preserve. Most of those animals had that same look. The look that said they had learned that nothing they did mattered anymore. But sometimes, if you were patient, if you were kind, that look would change. I will take it, Derek said. The Vrelian processed the transaction quickly, clearly afraid Derek would change his mind. The 3 credits vanished from Derek's account. A transfer code appeared on his data pad. According to station law, he now owned 1 defective dragon, serial number D577. Getting the dragon to his workshop was not easy. Derek had to rent a hover sled, which cost him his last 17 cents. The dragon could barely walk. Derek had to half drag, half guide the creature onto the sled. The whole time the dragon just watched him with those tired eyes. The trip through the station took 2 hours. People stared. A group of young Zenthari pointed and laughed. One human merchant, an older woman named Sarah who sold food supplies, just shook her head sadly. Another human with a soft heart and an empty wallet, she said. That dragon is dying, son. Best thing you can do is make it quick. Derek did not answer. He just kept guiding the hover sled through the corridors. His workshop was in the lower ring of the station in a converted storage unit. The rent was cheap because the ceiling leaked recycled water and the walls were thin. But the ceiling was high, which was good. Dragons needed space. Derek maneuvered the hover sled inside and closed the door. Then he just stood there for a moment looking at the dragon. Looking at his empty workshop. Looking at his empty future. The dragon lay motionless on the sled. Still watching him. Derek pulled up the disposal protocols on his data pad. The Vrelian had included them in the transfer file. Very detailed. Very professional. There was a chemical injection that would put the dragon to sleep. Then a second injection that would stop its heart. Total time, 23 minutes. Pain level, 0. Very humane, the file said. Derek set the data pad down. He had the chemicals in his basic medical kit. Every station resident had to carry medical supplies. It was required by law. He had everything he needed to do this properly. He looked at the dragon again. I am sorry, Derek said quietly. I know you probably cannot understand me, but I am sorry. You deserved better than this. You deserved better than being born into a breeding program that only saw you as a weapon. You deserved better than failing tests designed by people who did not care about you. The dragon's eye moved, focusing on him more clearly. Derek knelt down beside the creature. He was careful not to move too fast. He did not want to startle it. Up close he could see scars under the scales. Training scars. Combat trial scars. Someone had hurt this dragon over and over, trying to make it perform. You are not defective, Derek whispered. He reached out slowly and rested one hand near the dragon's head. They just did not deserve you. They wanted a slave and you refused to be one. That does not make you broken. That makes you strong. The dragon's breathing changed. Slower. Deeper. I grew up working with animals, Derek continued. He was not sure why he was talking. Maybe just to fill the silence. Maybe because this dragon deserved to hear a kind voice before the end. Animals that other people said were too wild or too damaged or too difficult. But they were not any of those things. They were just scared. Or hurt. Or tired of being treated badly. He looked into the dragon's eye. I think you are tired, Derek said. I think you are so tired of being hurt that you just stopped trying. And I do not blame you. I really do not. Derek's hand was still resting near the dragon's head. He could feel warmth radiating from the scales. Not much. Just a little. Like coals that were almost burned out. You are not defective, Derek said again. You are magnificent. And I am sorry I cannot give you the life you should have had. I am sorry I can only give you a peaceful ending. But I promise it will be peaceful. I promise it will not hurt. The dragon's eye widened. Then the world exploded with sound. The roar hit Derek like a physical wall. It knocked him backward, sent him sprawling across the workshop floor. Tools fell from shelves. The metal walls vibrated so hard that rivets popped loose. The hover sled skidded sideways from the force of the sound. The roar went on and on. It was not a sound of pain. It was not a sound of anger. It was something else entirely. Something Derek had no words for. A declaration. A statement. A choice. Station alarms started screaming. Emergency lights flashed red in the corridor outside. Derek could hear people shouting, running. He scrambled to his feet, ears ringing, heart pounding. The dragon was standing. Not struggling to stand. Not dragging itself upright. Standing tall and strong, wings unfurling, head raised high. And the scales were changing. Gray became red, deep crimson, then darker still. Burgundy shot through with veins of gold. The color rippled across the dragon's body like fire spreading across dry grass. The creature's eyes were blazing now. Fully alert. Fully alive. Looking directly at Derek with an intelligence that took his breath away. Oh, Derek whispered. Oh, you were never broken at all. The workshop door burst open. Station security poured in, weapons raised. Behind them came 3 Vrelians in expensive business suits. Official representatives from the breeding consortium. The lead Vrelian stared at the dragon with an expression Derek could not read. Shock maybe. Or fear. Impossible, the Vrelian said. Unit D577 showed 0 combat capability. 0 fire breath. 0 flight response. 0 bond receptivity. This is impossible. Derek stood up, positioning himself between the dragon and the weapons. That is because you treated it like a unit instead of a living being. The head of station security, a scarred Corthan female named Thessa, lowered her weapon slowly. Walsh, what did you do? Derek looked back at the dragon. At Ember. That was the name that came to him, suddenly. Ember. For the fire they said was gone. For the fire that had been there all along, just waiting. I knelt, Derek said simply. And I told the truth. The dragon lowered its head, gently pressing its snout against Derek's shoulder. The warmth was stronger now. Controlled. Careful. The dragon was being gentle with him. Derek raised his hand and rested it on the dragon's jaw. 3 credits. He had spent his last 3 credits on what everyone called worthless. And found something priceless instead. The legal review chamber was designed for arguments between different species. The ceiling was high enough for tall aliens. The chairs came in different sizes and shapes. Some seats had special air for aliens who breathed different gases. Derek sat in a human standard chair, very aware that Ember was behind him. The dragon had folded its wings tight to fit through the doorway. Now Ember lay on the reinforced floor, watching everything with sharp, intelligent eyes. Thessa, the head of station security, stood at the center podium. She was looking at holographic files that floated in the air. Let us establish the basic facts, she said. Derek Walsh purchased creature D577 from the Vrelian Breeding Consortium for 3 credits. The transaction was legal and properly recorded. There was no indication of fraud at the time of sale. The lead Vrelian breeder stepped forward. His name was Telex. He wore an expensive suit and carried himself like someone very important. The fraud happened after the sale, Telex said. His voice was sharp and angry. Unit D577 was certified as non-responsive. It had 0 bond capability. 0 combat functionality. Its current state indicates either human tampering or deception during our evaluation. Derek could not stay quiet. Tampering? I knelt down and talked to it. That is all I did. Impossible, Telek said flatly. Dragon bonding requires specific genetic compatibility markers. Humans lack the necessary neurological architecture. Your species was not even discovered when our breeding program began thousands of years ago. Thessa pulled up new scan data. Blue lights showed biological information in the air. Yet the scans do not lie. The dragon stress hormones dropped 80% in the human's presence. Neural pathway activation increased across all cognitive centers. By every measurable standard, a bond has formed. A younger Vrelian breeder spoke up. He sounded nervous. Representative Telex, there have been other cases. 17 units from the last 3 production cycles showed similar non-responsive patterns. All were scheduled for biomass recycling. Defective units, Telex said dismissively. Standard quality control. This is normal business. But what if they were not defective? Derek leaned forward in his chair. What if they were refusing to perform? The chamber erupted with voices. Multiple aliens started talking at once. Some sounded shocked. Others sounded interested. Thessa raised her hand for silence. That is a significant claim, Walsh, Thessa said carefully. Dragons are bioengineered organisms. Refusing implies choice. Choice implies sentience beyond their programmed parameters. That would change their legal status entirely. Derek stood up and walked to Ember. The dragon watched him approach. Then Ember deliberately shifted position, moving carefully to create space beside its shoulder. Derek sat down on the floor, leaning against the warm scales. It felt natural now. Comfortable. When I worked at the Restoration Preserve on Earth, Derek said, we had animals that everyone said were broken. They could not be trained. Too wild. Too damaged. Too dangerous. But they were not broken. They had just learned that certain behaviors got them hurt. So they stopped showing those behaviors around the people who hurt them. He looked directly at Telex. Your combat trials. What do they involve exactly? The Vrelian's mandibles twitched. That was a sign of irritation. Standard evaluation protocols. Stress testing. Combat simulation. Bond formation exercises with trained handlers. And if a dragon does not respond? Escalating stimulus until response is achieved or the unit is classified as non-functional. Derek let those words hang in the air for a moment. Escalating stimulus. You mean pain. Necessary corrective feedback, Telex corrected quickly. These are weapons platforms, not pets. They must learn to obey commands instantly and without question. Ember rumbled. The sound vibrated through Derek's back. It was not aggressive. But Derek could feel the dragon's anger. Controlled anger. Chosen restraint. That is your problem right there, Derek said quietly. You are trying to break them into obedience. You are treating them like machines that need programming. But dragons do not break. They just stop trusting you. Thessa looked genuinely interested now. You are suggesting the dragons were making conscious choices to fail their evaluations? I am saying Ember responded to respect, Derek said. The moment I treated it as a being with dignity, everything changed. That is not programming. That is personality. That is choice. The younger Vrelian breeder was frantically checking his data pad now. Representative Telex, I am seeing patterns in the recycled unit's evaluation data. All of them showed normal capability in their early trials. Then there was progressive decline in responsiveness over time. If I cross-reference this with the handler rotation schedules. Enough, Telex snapped. His voice was cold and hard. This speculation is irrelevant to the matter at hand. Consortium genetic property rights are absolute under galactic commercial law. The humans bond is unauthorized and potentially dangerous. We have legal precedent for reclaiming units that pose public safety risks. On what grounds? Thessa asked. Humans lack proper training in dragon management. The creature could become aggressive, unstable. Look at it right now, already displaying protective behavior toward the human. This is the beginning of dangerous dependency. The dragon could become violent if it perceives any threat to the human. Derek felt Ember tense beside him. The dragon understood enough. Or maybe Derek was learning to sense Ember's emotions through their bond. Easy, partner, Derek said softly, placing his hand on Ember's side. They're just scared. They are scared because you chose me, and that breaks their entire system. We are not scared, Telex said coldly. We are concerned with maintaining proper protocol and ensuring public safety. Then let us test it, Derek said suddenly. The idea came to him all at once. Public demonstration. You bring your best handler and a fully bonded dragon. I will bring Ember. We will have neutral observers evaluate which dragon shows healthier behavioral markers and better partnership dynamics. The entire chamber went silent. Telex's mandibles stopped moving. That was a bad sign. It meant the Vrelian was either very angry or very worried. The consortium does not participate in public spectacle, Telex finally said. Because you know what the result would be, Derek replied. Your dragons perform out of fear. Ember performs out of choice. There is a difference and everyone would see it. Thessa consulted her legal database. Information scrolled across her visual display. Actually, Station Charter Section 47 allows for practical demonstration in cases where conflicting claims exist about creature capabilities. If Walsh is willing to participate, and if the consortium refuses, that refusal can be formally noted in the legal record. Telex's entire body went rigid. His mandibles clicked rapidly now. Derek had learned that meant extreme agitation in Vrelians. We will not subject our proprietary methods to public scrutiny for the benefit of one unauthorized human with delusions of partnership, Telex said. Then the sale stands, Thessa ruled. Her voice had the tone of finality. Without evidence of actual fraud or demonstrated public danger, I have no legal basis to reverse a legitimate transaction. Derek Walsh retains ownership of the dragon, subject to standard exotic creature care requirements and mandatory insurance coverage. This is not over, Telex said, standing abruptly. The consortium will pursue every available legal remedy. That creature represents significant genetic investment. Millions of credits in research and development. We will reclaim our property through proper channels. As the Vrelians filed out of the chamber, Derek remained sitting against Ember's side. He could feel the dragon's heartbeat. Steady and strong. Thessa approached them after the room cleared. Her expression was concerned. You know they are going to make your life very difficult, she said. They can try, Derek replied. But Ember is not property. Not to me. What are you going to do? Thessa asked. You said yourself you are broke. Exotic creature insurance alone will cost more credits than you have. Plus housing requirements, feeding costs, medical care. You are looking at 500 credits minimum per month just for basic compliance. Derek looked up at Ember. The dragon met his gaze with those intelligent, trusting eyes. Eyes that were fully alive now. I will figure something out, Derek said. I always do. Thessa handed him a small data chip. This is completely off the record. If anyone asks, we never had this conversation. There is a merchant captain named Lissa. She runs cargo through the Kellis Nebula. Navigation there is extremely difficult. Autopilots cannot handle the spatial distortions. She has been looking for someone with natural instincts. I am a mechanic, Derek said. Not a navigator. No, Thessa said, glancing at Ember. But you have a partner who sees space differently than any computer or any normal pilot. Dragons evolved on a planet with gravitational anomalies. They can sense spatial distortions that instruments cannot detect. Might be worth a conversation. As Thessa left, Derek stood and faced Ember fully. What do you think, partner? Ready to see what we can really do together? Ember's answering roar shook the chamber walls. But this time Derek did not flinch. He was starting to understand what the different sounds meant. This one meant yes. This one meant they would face whatever came next together. Derek found Captain Lissa at the merchant hub 2 days later. She was arguing with a Zenthari freight coordinator about cargo rates. Lissa was human, maybe 50 years old, with gray hair pulled back in a tight braid. Her face had the worn look of someone who had spent years breathing recycled station air and dealing with difficult customers. She looked up as Derek approached. Her eyes immediately went to Ember, who had folded his wings tight to fit through the crowded market corridors. You are the mechanic with the dragon, Lissa said. It was not a question. Derek Walsh. Thessa said you might have work for us. Lissa dismissed the freight coordinator with a wave and turned her full attention to Derek and Ember. I need someone who can navigate the Kellis Nebula. 3-day run each way, high pay, higher risk. Autopilots fail completely in there. Sensor equipment goes haywire. Manual navigation only, and most pilots cannot handle the mental stress for more than a few hours. She studied Ember carefully. But dragons process spatial information differently than humans or computers. Multidimensional perception. If you two actually have a real bond, not just the dragon tolerating you, then maybe you can do what no one else can. We have a bond, Derek said simply. Prove it. I have a test run scheduled for this afternoon. Empty cargo hold, just you, me, the dragon, and the station's interior cargo lanes. If you can navigate the routes without hitting anything or causing traffic incidents, We will talk about actual terms and payment. Derek felt Ember's attention sharpen behind him. The dragon understood enough of what was being said. Or maybe Derek was just getting better at sensing what Ember was thinking. We will be there, Derek said. That afternoon, Derek arrived at Lissa's ship. The vessel was called the Distant Shore. It was a medium-sized cargo ship, maybe 30 years old but well-maintained. Lissa met them at the main cargo bay, which she had completely cleared out. In the center of the empty space sat a strange harness system, bolted directly to the deck. I had my engineer work all night on this, Lissa explained. She walked around the harness, checking the connections. It is based on Vrelian combat saddles but completely modified. I removed all the pain-compliant systems, all the control shock points, everything designed to force obedience. This version is pure support. It keeps you stable and safe without restricting the dragon's natural movement. Derek examined the harness closely. The craftsmanship was excellent. The seat was positioned at the base of the dragon's neck. Straps would secure Derek in place, but they were designed for his safety, not for controlling Ember. You ready for this? Derek asked Ember quietly. The dragon lowered himself smoothly, making it easy for Derek to climb up and settle into the harness. The straps adjusted automatically, fitting snugly but comfortably. Derek could feel Ember's breathing beneath him. Their hearts seemed to beat in rhythm. Lissa climbed up to the bridge. Her voice came through speakers in the cargo bay. Outpost Talus interior cargo routes are designed for automated freight containers. Tight turns, multiple elevation changes, heavy cross-traffic at all the major intersections. Perfect test for spatial awareness and reaction time. I am opening the bay doors now. Try not to crash my ship or get us banned from the station. The massive cargo bay doors slid open. Beyond them stretched the vast interior space of Outpost Talus's cargo network. Vertical shafts went up and down for hundreds of meters. Horizontal corridors crisscrossed at multiple levels. Automated freight containers moved along their designated paths, predictable but numerous and fast-moving. Ember moved to the edge of the bay opening and spread his wings fully. I have absolutely no idea how to fly, Derek admitted. This is all you, partner. I am just along for the ride. But as Ember launched from the ship, Derek discovered it was not that simple at all. The dragon's perception flooded into Derek's mind. It was not like seeing images. It was more like understanding space in ways Derek had no words for. He could feel the cargo corridors not as empty space but as currents, flows, paths of resistance and ease. It was like the difference between looking at a river and actually feeling the water move around you. Ember banked hard left, diving down 3 levels before sweeping through a narrow junction. 2 freight containers passed within meters of each other at that exact moment. Derek's stomach lurched from the sudden movement, but his mind understood perfectly why Ember had chosen that precise moment and that exact angle. The gap had been there. The timing had been perfect. They rose through a vertical shaft, Ember's wings tucked tight against his body. The dragon was using thermal updrafts from the station's environmental systems, rising without effort. At the top of the shaft, Ember rolled completely over, avoiding a freight hauler that Derek had not even seen until they were already past it. How did you know that was there? Derek whispered. Ember's response was not words. It was sensation. The hauler's mass had created a distortion in space, like ripples on water. Ember had sensed those ripples before visual confirmation was even possible. They flew for nearly an hour. The routes became more and more complex. Tighter turns. Faster traffic. More obstacles. Derek stopped trying to understand with his human brain. He just trusted. When Ember needed to climb, Derek found himself leaning forward without thinking. When the dragon banked, Derek shifted his weight instinctively. They were not communicating with words or commands. They were becoming a single system, reading space together. Lissa's voice crackled in Derek's ear. Okay, Walsh. I am thoroughly convinced. That was some of the best flying I have ever seen. Bringing you back to the ship now. But as Ember turned back toward the distant shore, Derek sensed something else. Another dragon was approaching fast, flanked by 2 Vrelian security craft with flashing lights. We have company, Derek warned. The Vrelian dragon was larger than Ember. Much larger. Bred specifically for combat, its scales were black as empty space. A rider sat in a standard control harness, operating a command interface full of buttons and screens. The dragon's movements were precise and mechanical. Perfect execution of programmed responses. And completely without life or personality. One of the Vrelian security craft broadcast on an open channel. Human Derek Walsh, You are in violation of Outpost Talus Exotic Creature Flight Protocol Section 12. Land immediately or we will be authorized to use force to bring you down. Lissa's voice was tight with anger. Those protocols are brand new. They pushed them through the station council this morning. The consortium probably bribed half the council representatives to get emergency passage. Derek felt Ember's reaction through their bond. The dragon was ready to fight. Energy and power flooded through Ember's body, preparing for combat. No, Derek said firmly. That is exactly what they want. Proof that you are dangerous and uncontrollable. But the Vrelian combat dragon was closing fast. Its rider was inputting attack commands through the control interface. The creature responded immediately, executing a pursuit pattern designed to force Ember into either a collision or toward the station walls where there would be no room to maneuver. Derek could see the difference clearly now. The Vrelian rider gave a command. The dragon received it, processed it, then executed it. There was a delay, a fraction of a second between each step. More importantly, there was no choice. The dragon was following orders, not making decisions. Trust me, Derek whispered to Ember. Instead of running or fighting, Ember folded his wings completely and dropped like a stone. The combat dragon overshot them, its rider frantically inputting new commands into the control system. But those commands took time. Time to enter. Time to transmit. Time for the dragon to receive and process and execute. Ember spread his wings at the last possible moment, catching a powerful updraft and rising through a maintenance corridor barely wide enough for his wingspan. The walls rushed past on both sides, so close that Derek could have reached out and touched them. The combat dragon tried to follow. Its rider commanded it to. But the dragon's programming included safety parameters. The corridor was too narrow. The risk assessment flagged it as dangerous. The dragon hesitated for just a moment while its systems recalculated. That moment was enough. The creature clipped the corridor edge with one wing, spinning slightly. No serious damage but enough to abort the pursuit. The Vrelian security craft could not follow into such narrow spaces. They were forced to watch as Derek and Ember emerged on the other side, gliding smoothly and calmly back to the distant shore's open cargo bay. As they landed, Derek could see the security craft maintaining their distance. They had made their point. The consortium could bring superior numbers, better equipment and legally sanctioned force. But they could not match the bond between Derek and Ember. They could not match choice over compulsion. They could not match partnership over slavery. Lissa was waiting as Derek climbed down from the harness. Her expression was somewhere between impressed and worried. That was either the bravest or the stupidest thing I have ever seen, she said. Probably both. They cannot stand it, Derek said. He was breathing hard, adrenaline still racing through his system. That Ember chooses to work with me. That their forced obedience system got outmaneuvered by simple trust and respect. Yes, well, your dragon's choice is about to make both your lives extremely complicated. Lissa pulled up a legal document on her data pad. The consortium just filed an emergency public safety complaint. They want Ember classified as a rogue bioweapon. If that classification goes through, station security will have legal authority to confine or destroy him. Derek felt Ember press close. The dragon's head lowered to his shoulder, seeking reassurance. Then we leave the station, Derek said. Lissa nodded slowly. The Kellis Nebula run departs tomorrow morning at 0600. 3 days there, 3 days back, plus 2 days for cargo transfer at Kellis Prime. I will pay you standard navigator rates plus hazard pay and full expenses. It will not make you rich, but it will keep you off this station while the legal situation develops. And if the consortium sends ships after us into the nebula? Too dangerous for pursuit. They would be risking extremely expensive assets on uncertain revenge. The nebula has destroyed better ships than theirs. Lissa smiled grimly. Besides, you will have me. I did not captain a merchant vessel for 23 years by running away from fights when it mattered. Derek looked at Ember. The dragon's eyes held complete trust. What do you think, partner? Ember's rumble vibrated through the deck plating. Derek understood the meaning perfectly now. Together. Whatever came, they would face it together. As partners. As equals. As something the Vrelian breeding consortium had never imagined was possible. The distant shore broke away from Outpost Talus at exactly 6 in the morning, station time. Derek stood in the small observation deck, watching the station shrink to a tiny point of light against the darkness of space. Ember lay beside him, scales gleaming in the reflected starlight. The dragon's tail was curled around Derek's legs in a gesture that had become natural and comfortable in just a few days. First time leaving a station? Lissa's voice came from behind them. First time having a reason to, Derek replied. He kept his eyes on the shrinking station. My repair business kept me locked in one place. I never made enough credits to afford passage on any ship going anywhere interesting. Well, you have passage now. And a job if you can get us through the nebula in one piece. Lissa handed him a data pad showing their route. We hit the nebula boundary in 6 hours. From there to Kellis Prime is 42 hours of manual navigation. Most pilots burn out mentally after 10 or 12 hours. The spatial distortions do terrible things to human perception. Headaches, nausea, disorientation. Some pilots have permanent psychological damage from extended exposure. But not dragon perception? That is what we are betting everything on. Dragons evolved on Vrelian Prime, a planet with naturally occurring gravitational anomalies. Their entire species developed the ability to sense and navigate spatial distortions as a survival trait. The consortium bred that ability stronger over thousands of generations. Then they tried to weaponize it, to turn it into just another tool for conquest. Lissa looked at Ember with something like respect. But you cannot weaponize a real partnership. You can only force obedience through fear and pain, which is exactly what they did. Derek ran his hand along Ember's neck ridge. How many crew members are on board? 6 total, counting us. There is Tyler the engineer. He keeps the ship running and complains about everything. There is Chin the pilot for normal space. She will handle everything outside the nebula. There is Koro, a Zenthari cargo specialist who manages the freight and knows more about shipping regulations than anyone alive. And there is Pavel, who does general maintenance and security. Lissa smiled slightly. They are all skeptical about you and your dragon. Fair warning. Derek met the rest of the crew at dinner that evening. The ship's galley was small, with a table that seated 8 if everyone squeezed together. Tyler was a tall human in his 30s with grease permanently embedded under his fingernails. Chin was younger, maybe 25, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Koro was a Zenthari female with blue skin and 4 arms. Pavel was broad-shouldered and quiet, speaking only when necessary. So you are the human with the broken dragon, Tyler said. He was not trying to be rude. Just stating what he thought was fact. The dragon was never broken, Derek replied calmly. Just unwilling to work for people who treated it badly. Right. And now it will navigate us through the most dangerous region of space in this sector because it likes you. Tyler's tone made it clear what he thought of that idea. Chin leaned forward, interested. I have read about dragon spatial perception. The theory is sound. But I have never heard of a human actually bonding with one. The Vrelians keep their methods secret. That is because their methods involve pain and fear, Derek said. Ember responds to respect. It is not complicated. Koro's 4 arms moved in a gesture that meant curiosity in Zenthari culture. You call the dragon by a name. Vrelians use numerical designations. This is significant. Ember is a person, not a unit number, Derek said. Of course I use a name. The crew exchanged glances. Derek could feel their doubt. They were polite about it, but they clearly thought he was either crazy or naive. Probably both. 6 hours later, the distant shore reached the nebula boundary. Derek was back in the cargo hold, secured in the harness on Ember's back. Lissa's voice came through the speakers. Entering the Kellis Nebula in 60 seconds. All sensors are already showing interference. Chin is transferring navigation control to you now, Derek. Try not to kill us all. Derek felt the ship shudder as it crossed into the nebula. Through the cargo bay's observation window, he could see the space outside change. Normal stars disappeared. Instead, there were swirling clouds of gas and dust, lit from within by strange energies. Beautiful and deadly. Okay, Ember, Derek said quietly. Show them what we can do. The dragon's perception opened up in Derek's mind. Immediately, Derek understood why human pilots failed here. His eyes showed him swirling chaos. But through Ember's senses he felt the structure underneath. Gravitational currents flowing like rivers. Dense pockets of mass creating eddies and whirlpools in space itself. Paths of safe passage winding through it all like trails through a forest. Chin, adjust heading to 273 Mark 5, Derek said. The numbers came to him naturally, translated from Ember's spatial awareness into terms the ship's computer could understand. There was a pause. Then Chen's voice, uncertain. That course takes us directly toward a dense gas cloud. Sensors show possible debris. Trust me, Derek said. There is a current through it. We ride the current, we save 3 hours of travel time. Another pause. Then Lissa's voice. Do it, Chin. That is why we brought them. The ship turned. As they entered the gas cloud, alarms started blaring. Proximity warnings. Radiation alerts. Sensor malfunction notifications. But Derek could feel through Ember that they were safe. The debris was there, yes, but the gravitational current carried them smoothly between the larger pieces. They emerged from the cloud exactly where Derek had predicted. The alarms went silent. How did you know? Chen's voice held wonder now instead of doubt. I did not know, Derek said honestly. Ember knew. I just translated. Hour after hour they flew deeper into the nebula. Derek called out course corrections. Sometimes small adjustments. Sometimes dramatic changes that seemed to make no sense until they avoided a gravitational shear that would have torn the ship apart. The crew's skepticism faded. By the 20th hour, they were following Derek's instructions without question. Derek could feel the mental strain building. Not from Ember. The dragon seemed tireless, perception as sharp at hour 20 as it had been at hour 1. But translating that perception into human terms exhausted Derek. His head pounded. His vision blurred at the edges. You need to rest, Lissa said during hour 28. We can drop out of faster-than-light travel and drift for a few hours. No, Derek said. His voice was hoarse. We are making good time. I can handle it. But he was not sure that was true. By hour 35, Derek was seeing double. His hands shook. He could barely form the words for course corrections. Ember made a sound Derek had never heard before. A low, concerned rumble. The dragon's perception became gentler somehow, filtering through to Derek's mind more slowly, giving him time to process each piece of information. Thank you, partner, Derek whispered. They broke through the far side of the nebula at hour 40. Ahead lay normal space and the Kellis Prime mining colony. Behind them lay a journey that should have taken 42 hours but they had completed in 40. The crew gathered in the cargo bay as Derek climbed down from the harness. He nearly fell. His legs would barely hold him. Tyler caught his arm, steadying him. That was the most incredible flying I have ever seen, Chin said. Her voice was full of respect. And I have been piloting for 8 years. Koro approached Ember directly, all 4 arms extended in a Zenthari gesture of honor. You have my deepest respect, dragon who chooses partnership. Even Pavel, who rarely spoke, nodded with approval. But Lissa's expression was troubled. She held up her data pad. We have a problem. I have been monitoring long-range transmissions. The Vrelian Consortium has hired enforcement contractors. Professional ship takers. They are waiting for us at Kellis Prime. What is their legal justification? Derek asked, though he already knew. They filed an emergency declaration, claiming Ember is a malfunctioning bioweapon that poses an imminent public safety threat. They have authorization from Kellis Prime authorities to seize the dragon upon our arrival for immediate corrective reconditioning. Lissa's face was grim. Reconditioning means complete personality erasure, Derek. They will wipe everything that makes Ember who he is and start over with a blank slate. Derek felt Ember press close to him. The dragon understood enough. The fear was not for himself but for Derek, for the thought of being separated. They are not taking him, Derek said quietly. There will be a tribunal, Lissa said. Kellis Prime has to give you that much under law. But the colony government is heavily dependent on consortium trade contracts. The outcome is not going to be in your favor. Then we make them see the truth, Derek said. He looked at each crew member in turn. You all saw what Ember and I can do together. You saw real partnership. Will you testify to that? Tyler grinned. Absolutely. Those Vrelian bastards need to learn they cannot own every living thing in the galaxy. Chin nodded firmly. Koro's 4 arms moved in agreement. Pavel simply said, yes. It might not be enough, Lissa warned. But it is a start. Derek rested his hand on Ember's side. Through their bond, he felt the dragon's determination matching his own. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The consortium wanted to prove that their system of forced obedience was superior. Derek and Ember were about to prove them completely wrong. The tribunal chamber on Kellis Prime was much larger than the one on Outpost Talus. This was a formal proceeding with representatives from multiple governments and corporations watching. Derek sat at a small table with Lissa beside him. Ember lay behind them, wings folded, watching everything with careful attention. Across the chamber, Representative Telix sat with 3 other Vrelian officials and 2 enforcement contractors in body armor. The tribunal judge was a Korthan elder named Voss. He had gray skin and tired eyes that had seen too many disputes over too many years. He reviewed the files on his display with obvious reluctance. This tribunal will determine the legal status of bioengineered Dragon Unit D577, Currently in the possession of human Derek Walsh, Voss said. His voice was formal but not unkind. The Vrelian Breeding Consortium claims the creature poses an imminent public safety threat due to malfunction and requests immediate seizure for corrective reconditioning. Telex stood, projecting images onto the chamber's main display. The evidence is clear. Unit D577 was certified defective and sold for disposal. The human has somehow created an unauthorized bond that triggers aggressive protective behavior. During flight operations near Outpost Talus, the unit engaged in dangerous maneuvers that could have caused civilian casualties. This behavior will escalate. The creature must be reconditioned before tragedy occurs. Derek felt anger rising in his chest. Those dangerous maneuvers were self-defense against your combat dragon that attacked us. Order, Voss said mildly. You will have your opportunity to speak, Mr. Walsh. Telex continued. Furthermore, psychological reconditioning is standard procedure for malfunctioning units. It is painless and humane. The creature's base personality matrix will be preserved. Only the aberrant behavioral patterns will be corrected. Derek could not stay quiet. That is a lie. Reconditioning erases everything. You are talking about killing who Ember is and replacing him with an obedient slave. Voss raised one hand. Mr. Walsh, please. Representative Telex, is it accurate that reconditioning involves complete personality erasure? Telex hesitated for just a moment. The technical details are proprietary. But the consortium has performed thousands of successful reconditioning procedures over centuries. Our methods are proven and ethical. Let me present our evidence, Lissa said, standing. She activated her own display, showing sensor logs from their nebula crossing. This dragon and Mr. Walsh navigated 40 hours through the Kellis Nebula. That is the most dangerous region of space in this entire sector. They completed the journey in record time with 0 incidents. The dragon displayed consistent, reliable, safe behavior throughout. She played flight recorder footage. The tribunal watched in silence as Ember navigated through gravitational anomalies that would have destroyed most ships. The dragon's movements were precise, controlled, and intelligent. This is not malfunction, Lissa said firmly. This is exceptional capability combined with genuine partnership. Telex stood again. Exceptional capability makes the creature more dangerous, not less. A malfunctioning weapon with high capability is an urgent threat. Furthermore, the human lacks any formal training in dragon management. He is unqualified to maintain control over such a powerful organism. I do not control Ember, Derek said. We work together. That is the entire point. Voss looked interested now. Explain the nature of your relationship with the dragon, Mr. Walsh. Derek stood, choosing his words carefully. When I bought Ember, he was scheduled for disposal. Everyone said he was defective because he would not perform in combat trials. But he was not defective. He was choosing not to cooperate with people who hurt him. When I treated him with respect, when I saw him as a person instead of equipment, everything changed. We formed a bond based on mutual trust. Dragons are not persons, Telex said coldly. They are sophisticated biological constructs. Genetically engineered organisms created for specific purposes. They have no legal rights as individuals. Then why do they choose? Derek asked. Why did 17 other dragons in your program show the same pattern of refusing to perform? Choice implies consciousness. Consciousness implies personhood. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices. Multiple species started arguing about the legal definition of personhood and consciousness. Voss called for order, his voice rising above the noise. This tribunal is not equipped to resolve questions of dragon sentience, Voss said. Our mandate is limited to immediate public safety concerns. Representative Telex, can you demonstrate that Unit D577 poses a clear and present danger? Telex projected new images. The creature displayed aggressive behavior during the Outpost Talus incident. It refused commands from authorized handlers. It operates outside established safety protocols. These are all indicators of dangerous instability. Because your protocols are based on pain and fear, Derek said. His voice was louder now, harder. You cannot accept that there is another way. You cannot accept that partnership works better than slavery. Slavery is a term for persons, Telex replied. These are animals. Valuable animals, but animals nonetheless. Derek felt something shift inside him. He had been trying to argue on their terms, using their language, following their rules. But their rules were designed to make Ember property instead of a person. He stood and walked to Ember. The dragon watched him approach, completely calm and trusting. Derek began removing the harness straps. All of them. Every buckle, every fastener, every piece of equipment that connected them physically. "What are you doing?" Lissa asked, concern in her voice. "Proving a point," Derek said. He removed the last strap. Ember wore nothing now. No harness. No control equipment. Nothing that could be used to restrain or direct the dragon. Derek took 3 steps back, then knelt on the floor of the tribunal chamber. The room went completely silent. "Ember," Derek said quietly, "you are free. Completely free. You can stay with me if you choose. You can fly away and never see me again. You can even go back to the Vrelians if that is what you want. I will not stop you. I will not command you. This is your choice, partner. Yours alone." Telek stood abruptly. This is a meaningless gesture. The creature is conditioned to obey the human. But Ember was not moving. The dragon sat perfectly still, looking at Derek. Looking at the Vrelians. Looking at the open archway that led outside where the sky was visible. The entire tribunal held its breath. Derek remained kneeling. His heart was pounding. He had no idea what Ember would choose. And that was exactly the point. Real partnership meant real choice. Real freedom. If Ember chose to leave, Derek would accept that. It would break his heart, but he would accept it. Seconds stretched into what felt like hours. Then Ember moved. The dragon stood, wings unfurling to their full span. Power radiated from every scale. This was no broken creature. This was a being of strength and intelligence and will. Ember roared. The sound shook the entire chamber. It rattled windows. It vibrated through the floor. But it was not a roar of anger or aggression. It was a declaration. A statement of choice and dignity and freedom. The dragon lowered his head and gently touched his snout to Derek's bowed head. Then Ember settled beside Derek, one wing extending to shelter him. The tribunal chamber exploded with noise. Multiple species were talking at once. Cameras were recording everything. Someone was already streaming the footage across the galactic network. Voss hammered for order. It took several minutes for the noise to subside. "Representative Telek," Voss said slowly. "The creature had every opportunity to leave or to attack. It chose neither. It chose partnership. How do you explain this if the dragon is merely malfunctioning equipment?" Telek had no answer. His mandibles moved silently. Voss made his decision. "This tribunal finds no evidence of imminent public safety threat. The seizure order is denied. Derek Walsh retains custody of the dragon, subject to standard safety monitoring and insurance requirements." "This is unacceptable," Telek began, but Voss cut him off. "This tribunal has ruled. However, I am recommending that the Galactic Council review the legal status of bioengineered organisms capable of demonstrating choice and preference. That is beyond my authority, but it needs to be addressed." As the tribunal dissolved, Derek remained kneeling beside Ember. He could hear people talking, arguing, making calls. But none of it mattered as much as this moment. "Thank you," Derek whispered to Ember. "Thank you for choosing me." Ember's rumble was gentle and warm. Over the next few days, the footage of Ember's choice spread across every station, every colony, every settled world in the sector. Billions of beings watched a dragon given complete freedom choose partnership instead. The video sparked something. Questions that had never been asked before suddenly demanded answers. On Outpost Talus, 3 more defective dragons refused their recycling appointments and were instead adopted by humans willing to try Derek's methods. On Vrelian Prime itself, workers at the breeding facilities began reporting that the dragons seemed different, more aware, more willing to cooperate when treated with respect. The consortium fought back with legal challenges and propaganda. But the image of Ember bowing to Derek, of a dragon choosing freedom and still choosing partnership, was more powerful than any corporate message. Derek received an offer a week later. A newly formed organization called the Partnership Initiative wanted him to teach others how to bond with dismissed creatures. Not just dragons, but all the beings that various corporations had labeled as defective or useless simply because they refused to be slaves. The pay was modest. The work would be difficult. There would be resistance from powerful interests. Derek accepted immediately, because he had learned something important from Ember. Respect was not weakness. Partnership was not compromise. And freedom, real freedom, made being stronger instead of weaker. 3 credits. That was all it had cost to buy a dragon everyone called worthless. But what Derek and Ember had built together was priceless. And it was just the beginning.